Well, greetings, gamers. This is Dr. Ayleen, the Gaming Doc, and this is your place and your space to laugh, to chat, to chill, to hang out, to take a moment, to take a break, to take a breath. And I got some really kind of bad news today, and I thought that I wanted to stream because, first off, I always want to be honest with you guys. And Dabber Gems, welcome in. And MSB Richard, it's so wonderful to have you here. So, being Think About It Thursday, one of the things we sometimes have to think about is how to manage loss in our lives. And it can be a tricky thing, because there really is no hard and fast, perfect way to handle things when something has affected our lives in a really, really major way. That said, that there's no hard and fast, fix-all. We need to go with what we feel in each and every moment as far as what's the best way to handle it. Hey Queen, how are you, my dear? Queen, one of my moderator supremes, who is also my daughter-in-law. And so, it's always wonderful to have backup. It's always wonderful to have, family. And it has been kind of a rough day for the doc. So, we're not doing channel points. We are going to just kind of talk about how it is that, we choose to deal with a sudden grief. And I think everybody probably has had that affect them to a degree, to some degree. And it is, it's good to be able to understand that, a lot of people have experienced a lot of different types of grief, and every single one of us has experienced grief and loss on so many different levels. And when we think about it, even though we may have experienced similar losses, no two are the same. The loss of, many of us have had like a loss of a job opportunity or some other loss. And even though the same type of loss may have occurred for us, no two are the same. And nothing really kind of exemplifies that as much as the loss of a family member. Okay, just processing the news as you are. Yeah. Well, it's rough, my dear Queen. So, I debated quite a bit whether or not that I was going to stream today. And I decided, because of the fact that, it's, and I will stream for as long as I can if I feel that, if I feel that I cannot honestly be able to stream, then I'll end the stream at that point. And it does help me to be here. Hold up, what's going on? There was a death in my family this morning. So, hey Bladella. Thank you, my dear Queen. And, there is that kind of numbness that comes in, and then after a while it just kind of picks up steam. And I've always invited you all to be very authentic when you come into the stream. And I want to be equally authentic with you. And, it's frankly, I'm not quite sure how this is going to go. So, and yes, you will see me using tissues. So, one of the things that when we experience a loss that's really close to us, you know, oh no, I'm so sorry for your loss. Thank you, Richard. I appreciate that. And, you know, it's without going into huge detail, was the loss of a child in childbirth. And, you know, it is a very hard thing, because I think back to when I was having my first child, and we almost both didn't make it. So when we have to kind of put things in perspective, and also giving the people who are right at the center of it, which is one of my nieces and her husband. And this niece is tremendously special to me because her mother died when she was 6, my older sister. And so basically she's been like the daughter I didn't give birth to. And, you know, it goes into like a couple of different directions. One is just the overwhelming desire that I wish that I could be there with her in person. And, you know, hey, Jay. Jay always watching over me. So the idea that, you know, on one hand, I want to be there with her and to be able to support her in whatever way I can, and at the same time understanding that she has requested just space for her, her husband, her family. You know, I mean, yes, I'm part of her family, but like her immediate family. And it is Red Queen 2. Hello. It's actually, it's kind of a tough day. And we're kind of seeing how this is going to go, and I'm just kind of talking into the ether just because, I don't know. Sometimes, and for some people, and to explain Red 92, there was a death in my family this morning. So, you know, weird siren outside. Sending you love, and my messages are open in Discord if you need to talk. Thank you, sweetie. Thank you. Let's see. Quick check-in for my daily bot ban. On my way to doctor. We'll check in later. Yes. And, you know, it's... And having it be an issue of it happening in childbirth. It's almost that feeling of, you know, that's supposed to be the point where there is a new beginning. And my niece is one of the most amazingly strong women that I know. She's very much like her mother. And, you know, and that place of, like I said, I want to be there for her, and I know there's really nothing I can do. There's nothing, and this is important to remember when dealing with people who are experiencing grief. Honestly, there is nothing we can say or do to make it better, as much as we wish that we could. We can't make it better. The most we can do is be there and support that person in the way that they say they need that. And so she's gonna call me in a few days once she has had that opportunity. And sometimes people need to start their grief off, or, you know, go through their process, their direct process. Sometimes they need to have that time to themselves. I'm kind of that way myself. Yeah, I think it was like the women in our family. You know, and you know, it's that idea that when something happens, we need to kind of have that time to process on our own. And I've spent most of the day, I got the call early this morning, and it is So I've kind of had the whole day so far just to kind of go, wow, wow. First stage of grief is denial, where it just doesn't seem real. And it was so fast. So being able to be, she is awesome and stronger than she knows, absolutely. And, her and her amazing husband, I know, are being there for each other. And so it is that desire to make things better for someone. Even understanding everything I understand about it, it's hard to override that instinct. Hey, I hope everyone is doing better than I am right now. Well, Sumasuki, I had someone pass this morning, so my condolences for you, and I hope that every blessing to you, and I hope that whatever process was that went through, it was as swift, painless, and without fear as possible. So, I don't know if her other two children, because her other two children are very young, I don't know if they knew that she was going to have a baby, but if they did, then she will have to figure out. Maybe the oldest, he's about 3, so pouring out one for the soul for both of them. So she will have to, if he knew, then she would have to find a way to explain to him that he's not going to have a sister or another sister. And that can be, yeah. She had her daughter, her daughter is less than a year. So she got pregnant again very quickly. And I guess it just wasn't meant. And sometimes that can be a very hard thing to accept. And it can be a very difficult time. So, and it always brings up other stuff, when you're dealing with somebody else's grief and someone who's close to you, and, for her to experience this loss. And sometimes things don't go right when you're having a baby. The labor, she started labor early, and she couldn't, the baby wasn't going to survive, so she held her daughter as she passed, which I think was very brave of her. Anyway, Mom called me this morning to tell me she got a package from her last night. Mrs. Mary Sue was her name. She wrote me a $75 check for college a week before her passing, and someone else we knew sent it to my mom. She was the sweetest lady, and it was my Sunday school teacher. Oh, and I'm sorry for that loss. It's not much. I have a candle I light in memory of those we lose along the way. We'll light it for you tonight. Thank you. Yeah, had to step out of classes for a bit due to an emotional breakdown. Yeah, I hear you. And being able to, because that's the thing about life. I used to be a temp worker at one point, and there was a big poster on the wall that said, "Life is a temporary assignment." My mom had a poster that said, "Life is the childhood of my immortality." And, it is about being able to deal with that logical piece, that left brain piece, that, yes, things happen. Yes, life begins and ends. And at the same time, there is that emotional piece where, we feel, that that idea that it's not fair, or it wasn't, it's like this was not the right time, or there should have been more time. And the thing is, we never know. We never know what it is that, is any given person's destiny in this life. So, and it is that piece of wishing that I could make it better for her. And I know I can't. And so, we're going to be talking a little bit more seriously. And I invite anyone in the chat who, would like to talk about their experiences. And, because I think the more we share about these types of experiences, first off, the more we let other people know they're not alone. I mean, it's not like it's making it about anybody. And I want to make sure that I make that clear, that I am inviting you guys to talk about loss, because it's not about the sadness, even though there is. It's about understanding that grief isn't where we get stuck. It's the pathway out if we let it be. And grief happens. And there is that disconnect between our thinking mind and our feeling mind. So, and if this is uncomfortable for anyone, tomorrow we'll be back to more of the normal stuff, at least I believe so. It's just today it's going to be a little bit more serious. So if this is uncomfortable for you, if you have experienced a loss where this type of discussion, then, much love, and we will definitely see you tomorrow. So, but yeah. And Red Queen, thank you. I'm a firm believer in candles. Every time when I hear the news of loss of someone close to me or someone I didn't even know, it's just like pour one out for the souls we lost. Yep. A libation. My mom always said we never permanently say goodbye when we lose someone physically. There's a piece of them with you always. Absolutely. Losing loved ones is never easy. Sometimes I feel like it just hits harder when it's a little one. Yeah. I mean, it's because it feels like a story that never had a chance to be written. And yet, she was a part, and I don't know if my niece named her, or if they had thought about names, or if at some point she's going to share that name. And, and the fact that, there was a full-on delivery. It's just that she didn't have enough time to develop fully the organs that she needed to survive. So, yeah, it is. And Queen of Mayhem, you're right. Losing a loved one is never easy. And the thing is that each loss of a loved one is unique. It's not like, believe me, at this point, if losing loved ones got easier with repetition, it would, shall we say, it would be really easy for me right now. But it's not. And it never is. The loss of my father was different from the loss of my sister, which was different from the loss of my mother. And as we, look at all of these things, and yes, it is about facing certain realities in the world. And it's not about, well, I can't complain about anything because death exists and people are grieving. I mean, life is life for each person, and every person is carrying and going through some things that are really, really hard. And if you are, I'm sorry. And, Hey doc, it's only a flyby visit. I have a migraine coming on. I have to be up at 6 a.m. but wanted to share the good news. My auntie, oh, your aunt can now bear weight. She's receiving physical therapy at the moment. She's very weak and sore, but one step closer to coming home. Oh, I'm so happy to hear that. I'm happy for your family. I'm caring for my uncle still, currently caring for him till the 29th on my own. Then I'll have a 4-day holiday, get to have donuts on the beach and eat lots of food. Love you too, Cosmic Shade, my lovely little nebula. Losing a loved one is not linear. It's a very jagged line. Yeah. I hope she did. At least it would be something she could use to help her through her grief, not just saying my baby. Yeah. And yeah, Cosmic, that is awesome news. And that's the thing, is that life is fun until it isn't, and it sucks until it doesn't. And being able to balance the two out, reality hits hard like a roundhouse kick to the face. Yes. And yeah. And in some ways, it has us appreciating things, while on the other hand, it is very normal and natural and appropriate for it to be painful. And I won't forget the pain the day my mom died. Yeah, me too. After having to phone my dad to tell her tell him she was gone, something that tore a piece from me. My parents were separated and no one else would phone him to tell him because my younger brother was with him and needed to know. Yeah. The cry I let out after that very calm phone call is one that I never want to ever feel again. Yeah. I mean, it's out of the 6 that I grew up with. My parents, older brother, older sister, younger brother, and myself. It's only me and my younger brother left. And that comes with getting older. The older we get, usually the more people we lose. And I'm sorry for the loss of your mom. And, it didn't feel real until I'd said it. Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is that once you say it, sometimes you have to say it over and over and over again. The phone calls, the people coming in. And I'm really hoping, because, we have like a group chat, in the family. And it is, I know that it must have been really hard for her, because she contacted me this morning, and it was some hours later when she was able to notify people in the group chat to let them know. And I'm really proud of her, because she flat out said, do not call, do not message. I will get in touch with you when I'm ready. And I'm really proud of her for deciding that that's what she needed, because it didn't matter what anybody else needs. Her husband, and her children, they're the only ones who it matters to. I was at a friend's house when I got a phone call from my mom that my grandma passed away from cancer. Yeah. And I'm glad, and I hope your friend was able to be there for you. It shows how much you mean to her to let her know. Yeah. Like I said, my older sister, who was her mother, passed away from cancer when she was 6. And she does remember her mom a little bit. But her mom has always been important to her, but I became the surrogate mom. So it's like the loss of a grandchild. And it's hard. And again, knowing that, her mother is there in spirit but not in the flesh. There's a part of me that wishes more than anything else that I could go and be with her, even though I know she needs to be able to decide what it is that she wants and how she wants to manage this. Good afternoon, Oddson's 43 with the wings. My hearts and thoughts are with you and your and the family. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Red. I really appreciate that. And I mean, there have been times before that I've done streams and something very sad had happened. And it was always that, do I stream or do I not stream? And like I said, I always want to be really authentic with you guys, because how can I ask you to be authentic in this space if I'm not going to do it? And loss is tough. But it's sort of like, we've got this. You know, together we got this. Together we're more. Together we can support and receive support. I'm sending my thoughts for you and your family, Doug. Thank you, Cosmic Shade. I really appreciate that. You know, and when the time is right, I will, you know, let my niece know that, you know, a lot of people are sending their love. It is what it is. I'm not a Christian, but I'm willing to pray for your family. Richard, thank you. I mean, even if it's just good thoughts, we can call it good thoughts. And right now, my family appreciates every single one. So thank you. And that libation. I lost my adopted brother-in-law to COVID in 2021. That was super hard for his son, me, and my sister. My sister is still deep in her grief. Yeah. Together we can light the darkness that may surround others and help them find their way through. Did you see my other message? The one about the migraine and the fly-through? Yeah, I saw that one. And then the 4-day holiday. Unless you put in one that was a bit longer, because sometimes the chat will negate it. So if you had something after the where you said flyby visit, because I'm scrolling back and I see where you said sending thoughts for you and your family. Yeah, thank you. She's still trying to push through the depression in order to try to move on, and it can be tricky. On the topic of grief, I've had my fair share, but the grief I'm going through for someone who is still here has been the hardest for me. My uncle has dementia. Oh, that is a hard one. He is, well, I say was, a very intelligent man. However, with each week we lose more of him. And Cosmic, I totally, I get it. I mean, no one could ever truly understand, because no one else has that relationship with your uncle. And I know with my mother and my sister, the cancer that they had ended up going into their brains, and so they began losing their memories. And the one thing that I will say, you know, and while the process is hard for us, I knew for my mother, and this was, my sister passed first, and my mother was very upset that my sister was losing her memory. And I know there were times when she looked at me and didn't know who I was. But what I told my mom was that while it was hard for us, my sister could leave this world as innocently as she entered it. That she would pass with no regrets. And that once she left the body, yes, she would remember all of us. But in that moment of passing, she could pass in total peace and not feel the regret, shame, concerns, or anything like that. That she would be totally innocent. And that helped my mom to think about it that way. And when my mom was reaching that point, and I reminded her of that, she kind of smiled and she said, I get to pass as innocent as I came into this world. And she said she liked that idea, that she would have, in that moment, there would be no regrets. Queen of it took me a long time to get through that stage. I got so lost along the way I didn't even recognize myself. Yeah, that's what my sister's fighting through now. She got lost, and I have been trying to help her find a way back to the best of my ability. Queen, my dear, you're doing amazing. And the thing is that it's not something, I mean, it basically, we wing it. In dealing with, whether we're dealing with our own grief or dealing with someone else's, we're winging it. We're trying to figure out what will help. It's like trying to put together the pieces of a puzzle. And to me, it's like in dealing with something like this, it's like a 10,000 piece puzzle, and it's a picture of an Oreo cookie in the center of a black table. And it's curved, so there's no corners. It can be really, really, really hard to figure things out. And I always encourage people that if in that moment you don't know what to say nothing. Listen. Let them talk or not talk. Because at some point you will know what to say. And it's just gauging kind of where they're at in that moment. And I mean, I grew up in the generation, it's like I was raised by people who grew up in the 1930s. So the idea of dealing with death, telling children, when I was growing up, children were never told when somebody passed. We just noticed that, the adults were sad, and then they would tell us things like, oh, well, they went to sleep. I'm not going to sleep. Or, there was that, oh, it's for the best, which, I mean, while that may be true in a weird way, it's not what you say to the person. And probably the dumbest thing I ever heard was at an open casket service, somebody actually came up and said, they never looked so good. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, you should wear a tinfoil hat so people know who you are and not to talk to you. But, and I do my best to hold people who say very dumb things in those circumstances. I do my best to hold them gently because they do mean well. They really do mean well. And having that, that intention, and we know what, it's like they say the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And it is about, to me, the intention does matter. They just don't have the right tools. It's, let's see, okay. All you can do is keep letting her know you're there. I pushed everyone away, and it was only my big brother and stepfather kept supporting me through everything. No matter what I did or said, they never gave up on me. Yeah. I mean, you can be present and at the same time not intrusive. You can say, I am here for you. And if nothing else, if it's okay, every once in a while, I just want to, check up on you, shoot you a text, letting you know I'm thinking of you and asking if there's anything I can do. And then you give that person the space, let them direct the grief process. It's hard because I'm still grieving my brother as well. Yeah. I mean, when you're in a grieving process working with someone else, that gets very, very tricky. And sometimes my sister goes into the dark place so hard that I don't know what to do to help besides just listen. My dear, that is exactly what you need to do. That is 100% exactly, because oddly enough, that's the one thing that most people don't get when they're in a grieving process is listened to. Everybody feels they need to talk that person out of what they're feeling, out of feeling bad. It's perfectly appropriate to feel bad when you lose someone. And it's not about, figuring out what it is that, that you need to tell them or what will help them, because nothing will. Nothing will make it better. and being there, for that person and letting them let you know how to be there. That makes a difference. That at least gives them an eye of the storm, even though the storm is like a Cat 12 hurricane. And in some cases, it's like, I cannot change this, but I can sit with you and cry with you and be here for you. You're not alone. Death can be a scary concept. It's an inevitability, but a fact of life. Yeah. And it is, there was somebody once said, it's like, people are very interesting because even though everybody knows that death comes, everybody acts like they're surprised. I keep trying to remember this, but I do have my moments of my heart shattering the more he forgets. Yeah. My auntie and uncle were like grandparents to me, and my grandparents were always too old to care for children. My auntie and uncle were always taking us away. We spent weekends with them, etc. Now watching them become fragile, it's hard to watch. But I'll always be here to care for them like they did for me. Yeah. And it is. And at that point, you become the memory keeper. And sitting with them and telling them all the old stories that, I know for all my older relatives, it was, all the stories, and you knew you were going to hear the stories 100 times. And then when that point comes and you get to tell them those stories back. Oh, I remember one time you told me about this, and, and you talked to them about it, giving them those little bits and pieces back. But yeah, it's smoked Gouda cheese bacon burgers with caramelized onion sauce. Oh, it sounds delicious, Asta. So wonderful to have you here. And I will let you know that this is kind of, a bit of a more serious stream today. So I'm not going to be my, up and peppy self. And there was a death in my family this morning. So anyway, but it does sound delicious, my dear. So saying comedic effect always makes me think of when Mom was dying. She kept stopping breathing, then started back up. My big brother started giggling, so I said, "What's wrong with you?" He said, "I'm sorry, I can't stop thinking of the Frog King in Shrek 3rd when he keeps coming back." I slapped him and we all ended up giggling. That's when the palliative care nurse told us Mum could most likely still hear us, but she'd rather hear us laughing than crying. I'm sorry for your loss. Thank you, Asta. I really appreciate it. And, Sumasuki, she had a recent loss, and even if a loss isn't recent, the thing is that there's no calendar on grief. There's no calendar or time limit on working through the feelings, and Queen of Mayhem is still working through a lot of that. I remember when I was little taking the sofa cushions off and building a house, and we played Three Little Pigs. Don't think I can demonstrate it to them anymore. I'm too big to fit under the couch cushions. Yep, it is, and that's the thing, is like there's this kind of mixed bag, because even though we're dealing with something really hard in the moment, often those memories come back in, and it's, and yes, sometimes it can be like, what are you thinking? Do you not realize what's going on? But that moment of humor, which is a part of life, and I agree that your mom was probably cracking up inside. And I do believe that, people are present in that moment because their attachment to where they're locked in physically, is loosening. So, their mind and their spirit can move out beyond the body. Let's see. Still grieving a death 15 years ago. Really close friend ended her life. Oh no, after she got diagnosed with ALS. Oh, Asta, I am so sorry. And that's the thing. There is no time limit. probably one of the cruelest things that I could ever hear anybody say is, it's time for you to move on. It's time for you to let it go. You know, you need to get over this. It's like, no, we don't. At least we don't need to get over it in somebody else's time. We can get over it in our own. I call them the little sparks of joy. Even in the most difficult times, they spark the joy for a moment. You know, and I mean, life is about the moments. And it's about, you know, because, you know, and for me, I was there. I stood and watched my niece come into this world. You know, I was right there when she took her first breath. I was right there when she entered this realm of reality. So, you know, and the fact that she lost her mother when she was so young. So I've always had that motherly, protective feeling for her. You know, and when there's someone we love, we want to make it better. You know, it's hard seeing someone you love in pain. And being able to acknowledge and step back and go, I need to let this person handle this in the way that they feel they need to. Let's see, I'll get the opposite and grief even more. Yeah. You know, and the thing is, it's like, you know, all those thoughts that come through at any given moment. Maybe it's a particular song that brings back a memory of that person. Maybe it's a movie. Maybe seeing a particular flower brings back, you know, whenever I smell jasmine, I think of my mother. Or if I see calla lilies. And being able to learn to find balance in all of that, to be able to, it's like, okay, you have the moment and then you reset. And those moments, it's almost like a tide that goes in and out, which is just as inevitable. The tide is always going to come in and go out, and our memories will always come up and leave. I had that from an employer who I asked for what should have been my mom's birthday off work, and he replied, "This again, can't you just get over it already?" Only in the second year? Oh my God. Okay, that sucks. That person officially sucks. Grief is a lifelong process. For some situations and people, it's easier, at least outwardly, move forward. Emotionally and mentally, it's a whole different ballgame. Yeah. And, you know, looking back at all the family members that I have lost, you know, it does reach a point where what you feel gentles. It never goes away. It's always a part of you. It's like if you go up to a totally still lake and you throw a stone into it and the ripples happen. And then after a while, the lake becomes still again, but the lake will always be different because of the presence of the stone, even though you can't see it. And, you know, for me, grief is a lot like that. I mean, when I woke up the next day after the loss of my father, I was actually surprised that the sun came up. I was surprised that the radio came on and people were talking on it. That it seemed the entire world was just moving on, even though one of the biggest parts of my world was gone. And we, you know, everybody goes through different ways of managing that. I quit on the spot, needless to say, good for you. I remember when my granddad passed, the hospital had misplaced his teeth. No, the funeral director had found some teeth and needed us to identify them. We as a family cracked up in laughter, and the poor guy didn't know what to do. So even in the hardest time for our family, we still had a laugh. We do have a morbid look on life and death, though. But hey, that's okay. I know it sounds stupid. No, it doesn't. But I still blame myself for her death. You know, I was with her for the most of the day, and I should have known she would probably do it. Sweetie, it's not stupid at all. And survivor's guilt is real. And being able to manage it. Evaluation. Hello, my dear. Being able to, I mean, because the thing is that even if it was a possibility, it was one of an infinite number of possibilities. And quite honestly, if she was determined to do it, she would not have let you know. She would have made sure that you didn't. So she did not want you to have to be a part of that process, even though energetically you still hold that connection. But it doesn't sound stupid at all. I hope you have a lovely Thursday. Best wishes to you. Thank you. Evaluation. That is so sweet. And, you know, we're kind of having a different kind of stream today, a different kind of thing. But we're talking about grief. And we're talking about it because, well, I'm in it. And I figured that this was something that we could share, that we could be in this space together, because this is supposed to be a space for everybody to be able to bring their authenticity. And sometimes I forget that includes me. I remember the last words my grandma said to me, live your life to the fullest. And the last thing she'd eat was watermelon. I love watermelon. Your grandma rocked. There's no way you could have known. Yeah. Anyway, I need to head to bed. My head is pounding now. So, 6 a.m. starts too soon. All my love will keep you in my thoughts. Likewise, my lovely Nebula. Take care. Thanks. And evaluation, if you have anything that you want to contribute to the discussion, if you have anything, whether to support or share something that you've been through, that's totally okay. This particular stream is about being able to give people a chance to talk about things that sometimes, and especially on streams, sometimes people have a real difficult time with. And that this is a very safe, gentle place for people to talk about things like loss and figuring out how to navigate grief and all of that. So if you have anything and if you've experienced something that is weighing on you, first off, I'm very sorry. Second, if you want to talk about it, that's okay. When I lost my mom, my great-grandmother, I went straight into a rageful and destructive phase. Yep, some people do that. I find myself doing that when I grieve more than any other phase. It's really hard to break that habit. I mean, it's weird, the different things that kind of help us separate ourselves from what we're really feeling. And anger is one of the main things that we can use to separate ourselves and stay like 2 or 3 steps ahead. For me, I made sure I was always very busy. If someone passed, it's like, all right, I'm jumping in there, talking to the, arranging for the service and dealing with flowers and contacting people and all this other stuff. And the food for the memorial service or the memorial reception and all of that stuff. My thing is, first, I get by myself. Second, I figure out every way possible that I could make myself busy, picking people up at the airport, because it keeps me about 3 steps ahead of what I'm feeling. I mean, eventually it catches up, but at least for a while I can stay ahead of it. So I totally get when you just fall into those patterns. I'm weird. This is the only death that's close to me. I have no family. Not weird at all, sweetie. And it doesn't matter how many times you've experienced, because each time is different. And this was a very powerful thing for you. And maybe this is someone who is that, was just so much a part of you and a part of your heart and a part of your energy. So there's nothing strange about that at all. I still feel guilt with my mom getting her late diagnosis for non-Hodgkin's lymphoma because I didn't pester her to go to the doctor with her swollen glands. I often think, what if they hadn't missed it? What if I had pushed for more tests? You were only 19 when she was diagnosed and 20 when she passed. Sweetie, you could not have changed this. You couldn't. Your mom was the one. Even if you pestered her, that doesn't mean that she would have done anything, because she wasn't ready to. She had choice. You didn't. You had no choice. You didn't even get a vote in this. You know, I totally get that feeling. And while no one will ever understand exactly what you feel, because this is a unique experience for you, I will tell you that, and especially considering you were 19, it wouldn't have changed what she did. In fact, she might have dug her heels in and not gone longer. So, but I understand that feeling of, you know, what if? What if? What if? What if? When I miscarried, it was even worse. Yeah. I went into self-destruct mode along with destroying everything else around me. Yeah. And my dear queen, you know, and I know that this brings back a lot of very hard stuff for you. So, you know, if you need to talk, please let me know, okay? She was like my sister. We were always together. Now I find it hard to let people close. Yeah. I was looking after my younger brother as Mom was working 7 days a week, 12-hour shifts to provide for all of us, doing housework and running the house alongside my mom. Yeah. She sounds like an amazing woman. And even the most amazing people get scared. Even the most amazing people can avoid things that are painful for them. You know, and, you know, I sound weird, but I've been always trying to find the right pieces to fix my problems, but when something like my grandma passing was like someone took what I made with my pieces and smashed it on the floor, and all the pieces scattered. I can 100% resonate with that, and you describe it very well. It's like the world, you know, when you experience a loss, especially a loss close to you, the world you knew was gone. And all of a sudden, you're stuck having to build a new one that does not directly include that person. And building a whole new world can be very tricky and very challenging. And yeah. But no, that describes it very, very well. That's a brilliant description. Couldn't have worded it better. Absolutely. I mean, and it is, and not only do the pieces shatter, some go under this and some go under that and some disappear to where you can't even, you know, even when you try to scoop them together, there's always going to be pieces missing. And that can be a real challenge. And, you know, when we're able to move through it and then get help, and help can come in a lot of different ways. You know, for some, support groups are helpful, and for other people, they're not helpful at all. For some, counseling, you know, like professional counseling is helpful, and for some, not at all. So it's important to remember that this is your process to manage. No one can tell you, well, this is what you need to do, because they don't know, because they're not you. And, you know, what people tell you is what works for them. And if they love it, I love it for them. And you are the one to figure out what works for you. And that can change from one day to another. That can be different for everybody who experiences it. And it's important for everybody to understand that however they choose to manage each moment, to manage each day, to manage each week, each month, each year, that's for you to do. You have to figure that out. Well, actually, you get to figure that out, because no one has the right to tell you what is appropriate grieving for you. I threw myself into work, smoking cannabis and sleeping as much as I could between work. Did that for 2 years, then finally faced my grief. Exactly. Slowly, surely worked through my grief in my own time, and I found myself again. I mean, and Red Queen, I love that you bring this up, because it is about people figuring out what they need to do in their own time and in their own way. And I recently heard about somebody who, her mother had passed, and her dad, was of course very affected by it. And she decided to help him, so she went into the house and took all her mother's things out. And she didn't tell him. And he kind of dealt with it, but you could tell that he was still in shock. And it's like, okay, if that's what you need to do for yourself, but understand you're doing it for yourself. And I felt like, it's like I wanted to say, it's like you did not, because she kept saying, well, I did it for my dad. It's like, no, you did that for yourself. You did not do it for your dad because you never talked to him about it. You didn't ask him if he was ready to have his wife, best friend's things removed. And that is a hard thing when people are, when people think that they know what's best for someone and they don't even involve them in the discussion. I mean, those were his things. They had belonged to his wife. And because she thought that that's what was best, she acted on it. And, and again, I know her intentions were really, really, really good. But the thing is, she wasn't being honest with herself. And I would have been highly pissed if that had happened. I would have been 18 shades of pissed. Thanks, Mom. As hard as it is to relive this, I'm not sure how much there really is to say about it. I have not really discussed it with anyone, and it was an early stage loss. I mean, it may have been an early stage loss, but the child was there. And those who have carried, who have been pregnant, understand that bond starts immediately, even if no one else understands it. So it is just as valid a grief. It's just a different type. I told my mom if I lost her, I wouldn't know what to do. I'd probably forget to fully function as a human. Probably for a while. For a while, we all do. And you will find your way. Doesn't matter how early, a loss is a loss. Sorry, I can't stay on long. I just popped in to say hi. Polish, hello, hello, hello. Hope you're all having an amazing day, night. Well, my dear, it's actually kind of a sad day. There was a death in my family this morning, and it was a child that was born that didn't make it. And it was my niece who, her mother died when my sister, her mother was my older sister, and she died when my niece was 6, so I raised her as my own. She's like my daughter, and I wish I could be there with her, and I can't. And this loss is really hard. I'm so sorry. Thank you, Polish. I appreciate that. So today's stream is about people having a chance to kind of share what it is that their experiences have been, and the idea that even if something happened a very long time ago, it doesn't mean that we can't still grieve it in some way. Grief changes and evolves, but there are parts of it that are always there. And sometimes a thought will bring back an old feeling, and we miss people. And so, and I do know, in fact, it was earlier this year, some woman came into a stream and And the guy, she mentioned that her mom had just passed, and he like jumped on her. And I mean, the whole internet turned on this guy. It was just every YouTuber was talking about how this guy had, and I think he was like a Twitch streamer. And he got slammed. I mean, it was like crazy because he asked her how she was doing. And she said, well, not so good. My mom just passed. And then he's like, well, we're not bringing any bad vibes in. You do not get to harsh the vibes of my stream and all this other stuff. And it's like, oh my God. First off, even if you didn't know what to say, you could have just said, oh, I'm so sorry for your loss. We're here for you. And, he accused her of trying to hijack his stream and all kinds of stuff. And, but it's like, I think, and, I mean, that being said, I understand if a streamer does not feel qualified or equipped to deal with someone's grief. And in that case, yes, it's honest to say, well, we can talk offline if you want. But to just slam somebody, it's like, I don't think so. I send love to all of you. Remember, you're not alone. There will always be someone to help you find your way and grieve in your own time. You will heal even if the scars are still there. I'm sure they were a lovely person, sending all my love and virtual hugs. Thank you so much, Polish. It was too soon to find out the sex, but I think it was a girl. We named her Akala. That's such a pretty name. Queen, that's a beautiful name. Perfect for a perfect angel. My mom took care of me and my sisters all by herself. She figuratively broke her back raising me and my sisters, especially with me being special needs. Yep. I mean, it is a very, very powerful thing, the connection. And, being a mother, I mean, I don't have the perspective on being a father, but being a mother, you don't have to have given birth to someone. And yet, that is a special and unique bond, as is when you adopt someone, when you accept a young person into your life. And you're able to, be there for that person, and you care about them, and you're protective of them, and you want the best for them. It is about the relationship. And yeah, sometimes when I look back on some of the stuff that my mom had to deal with, raising the four of us basically by herself because my dad was overseas all the time, my appreciation of her just grew exponentially the older I got. If I'd lost her, I'd just mentally and physically shut down. For a while, you would. And then that thing that's inside of you that has us get up when we don't feel like getting up, that knows that person would want us to move on, and not move on and forget them or anything like that, but that person would want us to survive. And maybe even if we don't feel like surviving for us, we survive for them. I felt I had to step up because at that point I had become the elder female for my immediate family, with my mom and older sister being gone. Suddenly I was the elder. And I needed to take care of stuff. I need to run. My eldest is not having a great night. Going to try to get him to sleep. Mwah, much love and thank you. Thank you, Red Queen, for coming in and sharing that and sharing what you share. That is so sweet. We'll see you tomorrow. I have a stuffed animal that Onyx and I have dubbed her stand-in for emotional moments surrounding the grieving. Good. I'm so glad you have that. And, and it is, love and light to you, Red Queen. It is about finding what works. And for some, it is, a surrogate. For some, it's being able to talk about the situation. For others, and for some, it is actually holding a funeral service and allowing that closure. And, you know, I have to go, Doc. My thoughts and prayers are with your family. Thank you so much, my dear MSB Richard. Thank you so much. And thank you for the contributions that you've made to the discussion. Like I said, I understand that this is definitely not like what the stream normally is. And the thing is, life isn't what it normally is sometimes. Sometimes life takes a hard left turn and we don't know, when at any given moment something is going to change our life. So being able to, be here and be present. And like I said, I didn't even know if I was going to. I mean, it was like 15 minutes before, and I was like, I don't know if I can do this. And like I said, I felt that by sharing what I was going through, that people who were going through something similar could have a chance to talk about it. And, and as was mentioned, it's been mentioned that people sometimes, it's like, hey, it's X amount of time has passed. Time, you should be over this by now. No, not if you're not ready to be. And, it's been just over 20 years since my mom passed. And, and there's still parts of that stay with me. Hey Shade, how are you, my dear? I hope you're feeling better, and I hope they figured out, what happened to you. Those were some kind of serious things that they were talking about, that you're putting. As of my day hasn't been bad enough, now there's a tornado on the ground in the county I live in. Please be careful. Please be safe. So, my dear Shade, this morning there was a death in my family, and it had to do with my niece, and her baby was born prematurely, and once she was born, they couldn't save her. And I know that you've had a recent experience. So if you choose to talk about it, if the topic hits a little bit close, I want you to honor where you're at. And, because we also have, Queen shared that, that she had, a similar type of experience. And that, it can be really hard. So, and I want everybody here to understand that you need to take care of you. You need to be able to be gentle. And if you wish to talk about it, that's absolutely fine. I invite that. And through sharing, I think it helps everyone heal a little bit. And, the rising tide raises all ships. So, but yeah. OMG, I'm so sorry to hear that. Thank you. It's so hard to lose a little one. Yeah. And being able to give ourselves permission to feel whatever it is that we're feeling in that moment, and then be able to move on from it, to be able to say, okay, this is a thing we're going through, and I know that I can't get this wrong, because whatever I feel in any moment, whatever I need to do in any moment is okay. It's a part of my process. And knowing to reach out and talk when you need to talk, to stay silent when you need to stay silent. please let her know that if she needs to talk, I'm here for you and her. Oh, Shade, thank you so much. Thank you. And, and like I said, Queen and, and you do have that, in common. And the thing is that when we share coping mechanisms, it may be something that someone else hasn't thought about. And, it is about being able to just do the best we can with what we've got to work with. And your best is good enough, especially when you're experiencing grief. And it's like, I'm sitting here like, it's almost as if I keep talking. I'm still trying to kind of figure out where I am, and thoughts will come into my head, and it's like, okay, don't dwell too much, because just keep talking. So, and first off, I'm very proud of all of you, because I know all of you have had to manage grief. And, that's what I did too. I am sending you hugs. Thank you. Thanks, Shade. Our family is having a rough day for sure. Yeah. And it's rough when you can't be there, when distance. And in a way, I think maybe that's good. Because then if she really, really, really wanted me there, I'm sure she would have said, Aunt Nini, I need you here. And I would have moved heaven and earth to be able to get to her. And she specifically said her and her husband and her children need to have time to themselves. And I'm really proud of her for that. So she is handling it. Thanks, Shade. Our family's having... crap, I need Friday to get here so I can re-up my sub. Grr, stupid ads. No! I completely understand, and please know that I'm here for you guys. There are truly no words I can use to try to make it easier. You know what? And we were talking about this early on. Nothing... one of the key things about helping someone deal with grief is to understand there's absolutely nothing you can say to make it better. Nothing. In that moment, nothing makes it better. That doesn't mean we can't be there, we can't support, we can't listen. Listening is one of the big things, and it's not just listening to the person's words, listening to their actions, listening to their energy, listening to their body language. And being able to just be there in that space. To, not try to find words to make it better, but maybe just say, can I get you some water? Or can I make you some tea or some coffee? Are you hungry? But, being able to give someone the space that they need in order to navigate their grief, and it is about respecting someone else's grief and where they are in that moment. And I have found that often when people, they feel that desperation to make it better for someone else, in many of the cases it's because that grief has triggered their own grief and they don't want to deal with that. So, there is like, no, you have to stop grieving so I don't fall back into it. I completely understand, and please know I'm here for you guys. There are truly no words I can use to try and make it easier. Oh, yeah. Knowing that you are here if we need you is more help than you know. Exactly. Of course, Queen, I'll be sending each of you all of the healing energy I have to give. Thank you, Shade. That is very sweet of you. You guys are all very sweet. And that's why, like in cases where, I've come up to, I've hit start stream on some very, very, very hard days in the past. And you guys have always been there for me. And that means the world to me. It means more to me than you could possibly know. I have to remind myself to hydrate. Hydrating is important. So, yeah, it's when we have a chance to, it's when we have a chance to say, okay, we need to be able to, to do what we can when we can, and have that be good enough. So, it's okay. It is okay to have that. It's okay to not know how we're going to get okay. It's okay to tell ourselves, my dear queen. We don't do the dancing today, but my dear Shade, my lovely friend, I appreciate you being here, and we do get by with a little help from our friends. The important thing is to let our friends know that not only that we can use some help and support, but exactly what that needs to look like. If I do go quiet, please don't think I'm ignoring anyone. No, sweetie, we wouldn't think that. It simply means I'll have to take cover. But if the tornado hits town, don't worry about me. Too late. I'm worried about you. I have a complete emergency prep book I've made, and I'll be helping people get to safety. Be safe, sweetie. Love you all. You'll each be okay in time. Everyone takes their own time to move forward. Thank you, Mom. You're welcome. Okay, Shade, go and be safe. May it pass gently, and although you and all of your community be well. So, but yes, sirens are going off. Go, be safe. But check in with us later and let us know you're all right. Be safe, Shade. Lots of love and positive thoughts. Exactly. It's and again, a case where at any time something could change in your life, whether it's a loss or a tornado. Being able to just accept what each and every moment brings, to learn what it is we're meant to learn from it, and then to be able to let ourselves move forward in the process. It's rough, and I'm sure that everybody, please put out good thoughts for Shade, because tornadoes are very, very big, scary things. And hopefully she'll be tuning back in later. So just sending out that good thought and protection and love and peace for her, because it is about finding that little corner of peace. It's about being able to manage, and it's about just doing the best we can. And sometimes we just have to say, well, all I can do is just lay in bed today. If that's the best you can do and you're grieving, okay. Trying to force ourselves to be able to do more than what we can do in any given moment, It's a tough one. It's a tough one. Because, on one hand, it's like, well, I need to do something. You are doing something. You're grieving. I need to get back on my feet. It's time I move forward. Who says? The only one who can determine if it's time to move forward is you. And by being able to manage that in a good way, by being able to say, it is necessary for me to honor where I am in this moment. And I think that I am probably not going to be, normally I go stream on Kick afterwards. I think I'm not going to, because I think I need to not. And I also wanted to be here. I wanted to be here for you. And, and a part of that is self-serving. And I know these types of streams are very different from what I normally do, and so I know that, and for those who are avoiding the stream because it hits a little too close to home, I'm actually very proud of you. Yeah, it's about honoring where you're at. And I also want to acknowledge everybody hanging out in the Loving Lurkers Lounge. Refreshments are in the corner. Feel free to put your feet on the furniture, and thank you for being a part of this. And please understand that if you have something that is relating to this that you want to communicate, please feel free to do so. So, here we are. And I am in a space that requires a lot of authenticity. Being in a space like this, yes, I counsel people going through hard times. I support people going through hard times. It's a thing, and it's still something that hits very close to home. And I cannot encourage anybody else to be authentic in what they're feeling if I can't do it. If I'm going to, and everything happens for a reason and all of this, which is all true. And it's okay when something hurts to acknowledge that it hurts. There were some things this week that were kind of, bothering me. And now they don't quite bother me so much. They're not that important. And it is important for us to be able to make what we feel important. Even if it's not important to anybody else, it should be important to you. So, being able to hold that space for one another, being able to honor what it is we're doing, and I'm thinking that might be all I have to say. And I'm thinking that maybe I should go ahead and end the stream here. Because, I need, if I'm going to tell you to honor where you're at, then I need to do the same thing. I need to be able to grieve. And I think that is something that I would rather not do on the stream. So I'm going to go and I'm going to take care of me. And we will be back tomorrow. And thank you. Thank you for joining in. I'm just keep looking at the time going, it's like, okay, I can do, I should be able to do another half hour. I should be able to do another half hour. But then again, why should I push myself to do that if I need to take that time off? Thank you, sweetie. Thank you. So anyway, we are going to call it a day. And thank you for everybody who came in, and I appreciate you all. We'll be back tomorrow, and I'm going to go and take it easy. And everybody, take care. You have my love. And we're just gonna go. And yeah. So we're not going to do the love train thing. We're just going to say bye. Because I need some time. All right. So, take care. Be well. May you walk gently in the world, and may the world walk gently with you. And may you receive all of the support that you need when you need it. All righty, everyone.